from Fox Sports and The Athletic, our friend Bruce Feldman here on the program. Do you want to ask Bruce on the air what you asked him off the air as soon as you saw him? You assaulted him with as he came in here, verbally assaulted him with?
Assaulted is very strong, a very strong term.
Accosted? How about accosted?
Accosted also.
I think that's a better way of putting it.
A little infused.
I mean, he had barely stepped on the floor.
Just wondering if you're coming aboard the Syracuse bandwagon. It's filling up fast.
I could see it. It actually is. I mean, that was a nice win over Georgia Tech. You have a quarterback who seems like he's in a comfort zone. You know, obviously didn't end great at Ohio State. And I feel like what I like about Syracuse is there's a chip on their shoulder. Fran Brown, I think he put together a good staff. And they're trying to make Syracuse relevant again. It's been, like Dino Babers had one really good year there.
Yep.
We're in a wait-and-see phase because the ACC is up for grabs. I'm buying Miami. I'm not sure who else I would. Florida State looks really bad. NC State got thumped last week. I don't know.
Well, if you're grasping in any point in time, I don't know why you'd be thinking about it, but if you're grasping as to why that 1 year of Dino Babers didn't last, would you like to know? There's an actual reason why.
What is the theory,
Chris?
It's actually Rich's fault.
Kind of.
Tell him. Go ahead, tell him.
Well, 1 year for my birthday, he had Dino call in and wish me happy birthday.
Surprised him.
And we talked Syracuse football. Big surprise. And then after that, we went in the tank.
He's the cooler.
The mush?
That guy right there.
It wasn't my idea to have him call in.
No, it was my idea.
Right.
Because I thought it was nice.
It was very nice.
I thought you were very surprised.
I was very
So
surprised.
Fran Brown is off limits for this show for his own doing.
Yes. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to talk to Kyle McCord or Rhonda Gatson. None of them.
So there you go. File that one away. File that one away.
Right.
Put him on your freaks list.
I know that's quite a superpower you have there.
Yeah. Don't touch him.
Look, I've been bugging you since February, and the questions were, could Fran Brown coach? Well, he's coaching up the offense pretty well. Kyle McCord leads the nation in touchdown passes.
Why didn't it work when we had Sarkisian on here? Maybe I should have had you talk to him.
Well, he had no vested interest in that.
That's correct. No, he does have a vested interest
Should
in
be
me
a thorn in
looking.
your side.
Yeah, me being miserable.
No, stop it.
That's his pleasure.
You had your fun last year.
Texas reminds me of Michigan last year, with a quarterback returning and an NFL upside. A team that just lost the previous national semifinal playoff game, and it sticks in and it puts a chip on their shoulder. Studs all over the place, an offensive line that can manhandle you, defense that can get after you. They look like a national championship team to me.
I think they look like a national championship team, too. Being there last week, the part I don't see the parallel with is how they win, right? So I think with Harbaugh, you had a team that was first and foremost was all about physicality. Now, I think Sark wants to be physical, too.
They look pretty damn physical
to
me.
And their offensive line, I thought, was terrific. I thought Sark had a great game plan for it.
He was awesome.
Quinn Ewers was very sharp, and he's played a lot of really good games on the road away, like in hostile environments. It's funny, at one point in the first quarter, on the sideline, and there was a security guy right near me on the field. He was actually on the Texas side, and I said, how long have you been doing this? He said, 57 years. And he said, this is as loud as it's ever been for Ohio State, which is, it's a good, statement or metric. And then after a couple of series, they get down, and it's like they're getting down double digits. You're like, Michigan cannot keep up with these guys.
Yep.
They're not even one-dimensional right now on offense. They're like no-dimensional. And some of that is a big credit to Texas. I think Texas didn't even have to show a lot of stuff. Like Texas they may have 6 receivers who are all better than the best receiver Michigan has. Taking, not tight end, but just the outside guys. And I think Sark has built them. To me, there are 3 teams that I feel like have a really good chance of winning a national title.
And they are?
They are Georgia, Texas,
and Ohio State. Yeah.
Now, Oregon has not looked very good so far. They're 2-0, but they've scuffled. I thought Oregon would be one of those teams in the mix. Then you have a couple of SEC teams that are kind of hovering around the radar.
When does Miami play somebody to get them in that mix for you? Because they've
not to the playoff.
Pretty much. So
I think Miami could smash. Look, Florida State doesn't look very good right now. I'm not saying Miami can't stub its toe.
Sure.
They certainly could. But the way Cam Ward is playing,
phenomenal.
Yeah, phenomenal. You're seeing a guy with a ton of confidence. He's got a lot of weapons. Cristobal has really recruited well. They've killed it in the portal. I think they're getting deeper. I think they're the class of the ACC, but it's still the ACC. They're not going to see anybody where you'll be able to say, oh yeah, they can compete for the national title. I definitely think they're going to be a playoff team. Mm-hmm. They can be a top 4 seed because they would win the ACC. I mean, a lot has to happen. They're still, but I just think there are teams that feel like they're superpower teams, and they're the 3 I mentioned. You could throw in potentially Tennessee. You could throw in Ole Miss. We'll find out a little bit more about Missouri, this weekend. And then we have Alabama. I'm gonna see them this weekend at Wisconsin. They struggled for 3 quarters and then pulled away from USF. But I just think there's these other teams that are, whether it's a Big 12 school or an ACC school, you're not going to really know if they can really hang with those teams. Mm-hmm. I think until the playoff actually starts to get going.
So they're going to be the who have they really beaten team of 2024 is what you're saying.
Yeah, the Hurricanes. I mean, look at it this way. I don't want to steer the show right now, but
please go for it.
So I've sat there and thought about what's the playoff going to look like in terms of you can be 10-2. You might even be able to be 9-3 if you're an SEC team, depending on who it is you play. The idea that Notre Dame, mid-September cannot afford another loss, and they actually had a nice opening week win at Texas A&M.
They sure did.
And then they lose to NIU. It's the first top 10 win in NIU's history. And it's a great story for them, but I don't know if they have any more margin for error because, yes, USC is looking better than people thought, but Florida State, who's also on the schedule, is looking much worse. Who are they going to beat? Who are people going to go, oh yeah, that's a really, really good win? There aren't going to be any, unless USC goes out and sits at 11-0 before they play them. I don't think there's anybody going to be like a top 10 or even top 15 team that's going to be on the resume. Now you got this loss. And I think that's the part where I feel like the playoff committee is going to be sitting there choosing from the SEC. Well, I think there could be 5 teams in there, but there'll probably be 4, mm-hmm. and we'll see what the rest of the Big Ten looks like.
Yeah, how many would you suss out? I know we're really early here.
Early, yeah. I mean,
because the way I would see it, it's Ohio State, right? Penn State,
yeah.
Oregon. USC, the way that they're playing right now, correct?
So far, yeah.
So far,
they look.
These are the ones that you could choose from the mix. I don't know what my alma mater is going to look like. They're going to have to play a heck of a lot better than we've seen over the first 2 weeks
on both sides of the ball.
Sure,
on both sides of the ball.
Trust me. I mean, right now their best player right now consistently is the place kicker, who's phenomenal. And that's not what you want to be able to say.
Can you be happy with having just won a national title?
Yes.
Let's say that.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't you have to finish up? I mean, obviously, multiple loss season would be disappointing and it'd be tough to watch.
Oh, you're going to have that. I mean, but the question is, I was going to say, can you be happy with, how hard would it be for you to watch the team coming off a national title go 8-4 or 7-5?
It'd be tough. Of course it would be. It would be difficult, certainly in an era
Any
where
umbrage in the fact that Harbaugh won,
No. Come on, man. I'm dining off of 2023 for a while.
Somebody else's.
For 2023, I will be dining off for a good long while, Matt. But, in the questions will definitely come from the alumni base for sure, that in this world of transfer portal and all that stuff,
Why did you get the quarterback situation the way it is? I think some of the timing was really awkward for them because it dragged on. Then you had the situation with Jim, with the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't know, who they could have gotten. It would be like, oh yeah, that's a big, big upgrade from especially what they want to do on offense. Obviously hindsight is 2020. Who knows? It's early. Maybe one of those guys like Davis throws it pretty well. It's just again, I think the issues are more than just quarterback there. I just think the receivers right now are really, really underwhelming. What the guy I wonder about, Donovan Edwards looked amazing against Ohio State 2 years ago in Columbus, and obviously had 2 long touchdown runs in the title game. But he's the guy. It was man, give them a spark, give them something, and they just don't.
Well, but the line also went from almost 250 combined career games under their belts to barely 50. I mean, and again, it's just week 2. We can see one Big Ten team I would like to talk about is Nebraska.
Yeah.
that kid Raiola looks like a real deal,
and he doesn't look like a kid in person either.
He's baby Mahomes, right? Like he looks like him. He kind of walks like him. You know what I mean?
He's probably physically about the same size. He's 6'3", 230. I mean, he has the same, similar hairstyle. When he wears sunglasses, he really looks like
right.
him.
I know, and I don't think he's shying away from that either.
And Bobby Stroop, who is like the trainer who worked with Pat when Pat was much younger, and does some really advanced things in terms of like body mechanics wise, and I think it helped Patrick do some of the unconventional stuff that he's so remarkable at. I think Dylan has the athleticism and has some of those traits. Look, I watched that game on the flight home from Ann Arbor last week. They were all over CU, and then
first half then
they pulled off the
kind of
throttle.
Felt like it was over by halftime.
It was over by, and they pulled off the throttle. But the way the schedule sets up, they have a really good chance of going at least, I think, 6-0 before the schedule starts to heat up.
Right.
Matt Rhule's a really good coach, and we're seeing it. In year two, he usually has really rough first years, which he did in his 2 previous stops. And then year 2, he gets them to a bowl game. They haven't been to a bowl game in a long, long time. It's crazy. And they have a good D-line. Their D-line got it. And now it's CU. CU is really awful up front. But they got after them, and I think they're going to be a good. I'm glad we're talking about it. I think they're going to be a good story in the Big Ten this year.
I think I know it's early, but I think, are going to be in the running for a playoff spot. I know that's saying a lot. It's saying a lot, but you just even pointed out 6-0. That's a heck of a start, from which all you got to do is just pick off 1 or 2 that you're supposed to not pick off. And then suddenly you're building a resume, and they look talented. They look sharp. They look much faster than I've ever seen them in recent years. And they got a kid like this right now.
Yeah, huge recruit for them. With the speed part, I think Rhule did that at Baylor really well. Right. He identified, I would have guys on my freaks list that were guys that, I'm not saying none of them were big recruits, but they were like guys with big track backgrounds who he kind of invested in time. They developed them. He does a really good job. I think for people who are maybe watching this and thinking, oh yeah, it did not work in the NFL, that doesn't mean he's not a really good college coach. I thought what he did at Baylor was truly remarkable, because he took over a situation that was toxic in Waco.
Oh my goodness.
And he did almost everything I thought he did was right, and it was not easy to do it all right. He followed Jim Grobe, had the job in the interim between Bryles, and Jim Grobe is a really decent man, really well regarded, and I think there was a lot of awkward moments that he had to kind of wade through, and sometimes they got messy. And when he got in there, he being Rhule, I thought he just was really masterful in how he handled it. And, there's a little bit of buyer beware at Nebraska, just because anybody who covers college football thought when Scott Frost got there, oh yeah, home run hire. He crushed it at UCF. He's coming home. He knows how to recruit, all this stuff. We're all buying in. And then it didn't work. And here's Matt Rhule, similar, he was multiple stops successful. He's a Penn State guy from the Northeast, but it seemed like a really good hire, and it's looking like a really good hire.
Bruce Feldman of Fox Sports. So you were in Ann Arbor last week. Where are you going this week?
I'm going to Madison. I'm excited to see Wisconsin against Alabama. I've only done one game in Camp Randall. It's an awesome place. It really is. And want to see what Alabama's going to look like. Jalen Milroe is a really special talent. It's obviously Kalen DeBoer took over for the legend there, and I think they're good. I don't know. Right now, I feel like I have more confidence in Ole Miss and Tennessee right now. Last week, and I think USF is better than people give them credit for, but they really struggled with them for 3 quarters, and we'll see how Milroe fits in this offense and how Kalen DeBoer makes it work. As far as Wisconsin, it's year 2 for Luke Fickell. I thought he was a really good hire. They're struggling to find an identity right now.
And Wisconsin, you want to touch on them?
Yeah, I just think that there's no more Big Ten West, but we just talked about Nebraska for a while. it feels like if you look at tiers for TIERS, not the other ones,
Right.
it feels like it's Ohio State. I think Oregon's there. I know they haven't looked great in the first 2 weeks, but they're 2-0. Penn State struggled last week a little bit with Bowling Green, but they looked good against West Virginia, and I think their offense is much better with Andy Kotelnicki running it. I think Penn State's there because they have a lot of athletes on defense.
USC?
Maybe. I mean, you know, it's hard to read too much into Utah State, but the fact is they shut them out and have not had big busts on defense. Like Dan Lynn's a terrific defensive coordinator. He showed it last year at UCLA. I think he's really smart. I think they have gotten buttoned up in the fundamentals. They added some nice players in the portal. Miller Moss has been terrific so far. They got really good receivers. They're like a dangerous team. I don't know if they're good enough on the O-line to be a top 10 team, but I think because they're more buttoned up on defense and because I think the passing game is so dangerous, because he's accurate, he's really smart, he sees the field, and they have 4 or 5 really good receivers, I think they can have a chance to win 10 games. You know, I don't know if I would. I feel like Oregon's a more talented team
Than USC.
Yeah, but the gap is closer than I probably would have thought it would be. And, you know, Penn State, I mean, I don't know, you know, but I definitely feel like USC right now looks like they're in a lot better shape than Michigan does.
Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show from Fox Sports and The Athletic. So, what's your opinion of the first 2 weeks of Colorado Buffaloes football?
Yeah. So the first week, they played a good FCS program, North Dakota State. They skated by. Travis Hunter was fantastic. Last week, they just got whooped. It is the first time, you know, they're at Nebraska. Big difference from the year before when Nebraska was turning it over left and right, you know, with Jeff Sims playing quarterback. And then you got Dylan Raiola, who looked really good. It's the first time since Deion's been there where the defense actually looked better than the offense. You know, now some of that's credit to Robert Livingston. That was a good hire by Deion. He's a longtime assistant with the Bengals, first-time defensive coordinator. I think they are better on the D-line. The problem is they're so bad on the O-line, and there's a lot of stuff that you just like, man, this feels like it's starting to – this feels like it's going in a really bad direction right now. And
why is that? Is it the stuff with the media and
it's
crime?
It's all sorts of stuff. It's just like I feel like is Shador and Deion, are they on the team bus with them? It's all these little things that I don't know if they're little or not, you know? And there's so many times where it feels like they're trying to put out little media fires. And I don't know if they're media fires or if they're team chemistry fires, you know, who knows? But like, I think we'll know if I think this team has enough frontline talent to win 8 games. They're also shaky enough on the offensive line and in some places where they could also only win 4 games. You know, I don't think the margin for error is that great. Like,
well, the way that happens is if Shador is hurt, right?
Well, that would be, yeah. And
and the way that he gets hurt is because the line is shaky. Again, protecting him and getting maybe a balance in the game with a run game. And it's just like him throwing 50 times.
I think some of that is, but some of that is, a lot of that is on the head coach now. I mean, you have an O-line coach who's never been, you know, he was a GA, but this is the first time where it's his room. That's a big challenge when you're trying to build an offensive line. It was horrible last year, and there's a lot of new guys in it. You're starting a talented but still a true freshman at one of the tackles. The right side of the offensive line looks really bad. Now, they played a good D-line at Nebraska last week. I think that D-line is better. Like, they should be able to win the next 2 games. It's Colorado State, who gave them a good game last year.
Oh, my goodness gracious. That's where that was Shadesgate, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that it?
And then they have Baylor, who's struggling. You know, but Dave Aranda is running the defense now. Dave Aranda is one of the sharpest defensive minds in all of football.
Uh-huh.
You got to come out of those 2 games 3-1 if you're them, because if they're not, I think all these other things that kind of start to come to light, these little, again, I don't know if they're little or you know, medium-sized little grease fires, but there's just a lot of stuff that successful teams don't have like that, I feel like. And again, some of it has become an us against the world vibe that I feel like is happening with CU and Deion. Look, and I'm a person who said before the season, I think they're going to win 8 games. I'm not checked out on it because I do think the defense is better than it was last year, significantly better. I think Shedeur is a terrific quarterback, and I think they not only have Travis Hunter, I think Jimmy Horn Jr. is terrific, and they have 2 other receivers who are very good. It's just that the O-line's bad, and they don't do anything in the run game, and so eventually, how do you hold up in that? How do you play complementary football to support the other side of the ball? And they're also, they don't have great depth. And, again, it's fascinating to watch, but I think a lot of the people who were all in on Deion are getting some buyer's remorse of how it's working out right now.
If you're talking about, Matt Rhule, we talked about before, the coach that just beat Colorado, and how it takes a couple years for him to get his program up and running, correct? I mean, Deion took over damn near a 0-win football team.
No,
right?
They were awful.
Correct. So, but I understand that when Deion says, we're coming, and people will then say, okay, the opposition was coming for you, and look at you, you've lost. And so I understand that the manner in which he conducts his post-game press conferences leads to people to say, not give him the time to build, right?
If I put you on the spot with this question,
okay,
I want to hear your answer.
Sure.
So if I said to you, give me a % chance that Deion Sanders will be the head coach of Colorado a year from now, keeping in mind that Shedeur is probably going to go in the draft and I would guess would be a first-round pick. Travis Hunter likely would go in the draft and also be a very high pick.
I think Travis Hunter might be a top 5 pick.
Oh, he's phenomenal
in the NFL.
He's phenomenal.
That's for real.
And Shedeur is really good.
Yeah, he is.
And
so you're saying that Deion just took the Colorado job to get his kid drafted?
No, I'm saying 2 years. I'm asking you, how certain are you that you think when those guys leave, Deion's still going to be the head coach at CU?
Listen, I love the guy, and just like everybody, and just like everybody else that I love, I can't get in his head. I can't get in anybody's head like that.
But do you think?
But I would say he's going to be there. Yeah.
You think there's a more than 50% chance?
Yeah, because the guy loves to coach. He loves to coach. He loves to fish. I think he does dig it up there.
I think it's going to be way harder for him.
Why do you think he'd want to tap out?
I don't know if it's tapping out.
Definitely would be tapping out.
I think the job will be way harder when you do not have Shedeur and Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn Jr. I think without those guys, I feel like that program feels like it could be a 2-win.
But nobody ever thought that Deion could get Travis Hunter. Remember that was the eyebrow raiser of the day when he's like, yeah, guess who I got from my alma mater too. And so why can't he do it again?
It's possible. I mean, look, you could say, hey, I see you as the next Travis, and you can sell that. I mean, he's actually shown that. You can say, he's raised a first round, I think. I think he'll be a first round quarterback. And so you can sell that. But I just think, to me, unlike most programs, the gap between the top players and their roster and what's behind them is profound. I'm not saying, Raiola isn't markedly better than Harburg, who's their backup or whatnot. But I don't think, for as great as Jeremiah Smith is at Ohio State, the freshman receiver, the guys behind him are going to be probably really good NFL players.
Well, that's Ohio State wide receivers.
I know. Right? I'm comparing. But even still, if you look at pick, Penn State guys, again, or because we're talking about playoff teams. I'm not talking about the Oklahoma States and Arizonas and the rest of the Big 12.
Yeah.
But even to me, it's just you're talking about first round draft guys compared to the guys behind them feel like there's a huge gap. And I'm just thinking when they leave.
Well, here's how I would also respond is that Deion's entire career in life, he's always, it's always assumed he's doing stuff just for himself.
Oh, I think he's,
or just for the sizzle, just for the attention, must be the money, right? And and then you scratch deeper, and it's deeper than that. It always is deeper than that. So I would counsel just to say I understand the vibe that you get, like that when his kid's gone and Travis Hunter's gone and the other top guys are gone, he might think about the exits rather than trying to build it up with other people. My question for you is where would he wind up?
I don't
just
know.
not in coaching anymore.
I don't like everything. My sense of it is the first and foremost thing is you see a dad who is doing everything he can to help his sons. And you know, I would put Travis in there because he has such a bond with him. But I feel like a lot of it is everything is built around Shedeur, Shiloh. Now somebody else would make the case, hey, if he was doing everything he could, why would he not get the offensive line better? I think they're trying. It's a hard thing to do in college football, to develop an offensive line. You can't just like put it in,
right.
You know, put a bunch of ingredients in a pot and then, you know, you get something out of it. But like, I feel like everything is about Shedeur and his sons and trying to develop them and showcase them and nurture them. And look, he is, you know, I think it's really hard to raise a first round quarterback, you know, again, and this was a guy who started out as college at FCS level and has proven a ton of people wrong. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, like I would say, let's say those guys both leave as first round picks. Like, I don't know what, and only Deion would be able to answer this, you know, but like after that, like what is the thing that's going to drive him to do all the stuff that it takes to build a program that can compete for championships? It is a grind, and there's a lot of stuff that is like, it's a much harder job, I think, now than it was 10 years ago in terms of like the recruiting piece of it. And it's not just being on Zooms when you have like some transfer. It's not just having an NIL war chest. I just think there's so much that goes into it, so many headaches and everything else. And I think I actually think it becomes a lot harder after this year.
Maybe what would keep him going is the fact that folks would be questioning he's not up for the grind or doesn't want to do it once his kid's out the door. Maybe that's what it is.
I mean, we know he's great on TV. I know he knows some TV people who think very highly of him.
Bruce, you're the best, man. Thanks for taking in fascinating conversations of college football. Enjoy.
Sorry for hijacking the show.
You didn't just hijack the show at all, man. Please don't think for another second. I love when you come on, and it's always thought-provoking and informative and interesting. Have a good time in Wisconsin, sir.
Can't wait.
That's it. Hour number 3, my power rankings. Your phone calls at 844-204-RICH, number to dial. Still here on the Roku channel. You haven't hijacked a thing.
Okay. I always feel guilty when I feel like I come in and try to.
Why do you feel guilty? I mean, he's the one who hijacked this whole thing with coming in and barking at you about Syracuse.
I was not barking. I merely asked a question.
Look, as somebody who grew up in upstate New York, I and somebody who remembers like the Pasqualoni and Coach Mack days, I think it's awesable if Syracuse can be relevant for a little bit.
100%. One of the saddest stories in recent memory is when Dabo came in and pointed out Jim Brown's jersey, number 44, and the kids didn't know, right? Was that?
Yeah,
remember that story?
Yeah, I think that
when
was
Clemson went in for the first time as an ACC team, and pointed to the 44, and it's just like they're like, who?
Rob Conrad.
I forget who he
Good one.
Did he have a neck roll? Did Rob Conrad have the neck roll?
Rob Conrad was in the stats class before me on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays.
Are you serious?
Yes. So he was a senior and I was a freshman.
Is this like the Dan Conley era too?
Maybe. Yeah. And he didn't show up on Mondays because it was the day after a game, and never showed up on Friday, day before a game. Only went to class on Wednesdays.
Way to put together a highlight reel for the academic benefits of going to Syracuse. Way to go.
Or just that useless stats class.
There you go.
Look where it got you, though.
See what I mean?
Well,
look where it's gotten him. As the mush of the Rich Eisen Show.
Kyle McCord Heisman.
There you go. This guy. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.